Once, Olivia Newton-John made the world fall in love with a single smile. With Hopelessly Devoted to You and the unforgettable role of Sandy, she became the embodiment of innocence, romance, and the American dream. But behind that radiant image lived a woman shaped not only by fame, but by quiet battles. The private moments and unseen photographs from her life reveal a very different Olivia, ordinary, vulnerable, deeply human. And it is within those moments that her true story begins. Olivia Newton-John was born on September 26, 1948, in Cambridge, England, into a family that valued discipline. Her mother, Irene Newton-John, was an opera singer, strict, refined, emotionally expressive. Her father, Brinley Newton-John, was a respected academic, once serving as a college dean in Germany. It was a household of structure and reason, but Olivia was drawn to something else entirely. From a very early age, she felt an instinctive pull toward music, not as ambition but as necessity. While other children searched for identity, Olivia sang. At home with friends, anywhere her voice could exist freely, music became her language, her refuge, her way of understanding the world. She formed a small band with classmates, not chasing fame but chasing the feeling of belonging she felt when standing before a microphone. That feeling followed her when her family relocated to Australia, where her path began to take shape as a teenager. Olivia sang at her brother-in-law's coffee shop. Quietly refining her craft, she soon appeared on several Australian television programs, including The Go Show, Time for Terry, and The Happy Show. Her face became familiar, yet she remained distant. No scandals, no loud self-promotion, no hunger for attention. Then came a turning point. Winning a talent competition hosted by Johnny O'Keefe offered Olivia more than recognition. He offered her a chance to return to England and pursue music professionally. And yet, she hesitated. Her heart was in Australia, anchored by comfort, familiarity, and a young romance. It was her mother who gently pushed her forward. With reluctance and quiet fear, Olivia left everything she knew behind. England did not welcome her with success. Instead, it offered loneliness, confusion, and doubt. She missed home so deeply that she once attempted to book a ticket back to Australia. Once again, her mother intervened, not with force, but with vision, guiding her toward collaboration. That guidance led Olivia to Pat Carroll, a fellow Australian singer. Together, they formed a duo, performing in nightclubs, learning how to survive an unforgiving industry, and discovering the resilience required to stay on stage when applause was uncertain. They sang backup for established artists, and when Pat eventually returned to Australia, Olivia was left alone, facing a solo journey with no clear map ahead. But it was in that solitude that her first true breakthrough began to take shape. Alone in England, Olivia Newton-John stood at the edge of uncertainty. No partner, no guarantees, only a voice and the fragile belief that it might be enough. Her first solo album, If Not For You, was a risk taken in silence. There were no grand expectations, only cautious hope. But when the title track began climbing the charts, that hope transformed into something real. Soon after, Banks of the Ohio followed, reaching the top 10 in both the UK and Australia. Almost without realizing it, Olivia had crossed a threshold. The young woman who once hesitated to board a plane had become a name the industry could no longer ignore. Recognition arrived quickly. She was voted Best British Female Singer by Record Mirror 2 years in a row. Let Me Be There earned her a Grammy Award and the Country Music Association's title of Most Promising Female Artist. Go. On paper, it was a dream ascent, but success carries its own weight within the country music world. Not everyone welcomed her presence. To some traditionalists, Olivia was an outsider, too polished, too foreign, too gentle. Prominent figures such as Tammy Wynette and George Jones openly opposed the awards she received, even forming a separate association. The controversy did not damage her sales, but it wounded her deeply. Olivia had always respected the country music community. To be quietly rejected by the genre she admired left a scar she never publicly confronted. She did not fight back, nor did she explain herself. She simply carried the disappointment inward. In 1975, America finally embraced her fully. The album Have You Never Been? Mellow soared straight to #1. American audiences connected with her warmth, her sincerity, and the rare authenticity she carried into every performance. For a moment it seemed as though she had found a place where she truly belonged. Yet even success could not protect her from doubt. After several albums, Olivia's momentum began to slow. She felt constrained by expectations too safe, too predictable tensions with McGarrico's decision. She sued the label over unfair compensation. Though she ultimately won the case, the victory came at a cost. Her relationship with the industry became strained, and once again Olivia faced the risk of fading quietly into the background. Then in 1978, fate intervened, not through music alone, but through cinema. Grease appeared in June of that year and changed everything. The film did more than revive Olivia's career. It transformed her into a global icon. The soundtrack dominated charts worldwide, crossing cultural boundaries and embedding her name permanently into popular history. Suddenly, Olivia Newton-John was no longer just a singer. She was a symbol. And yet even as the world celebrated another transformation, Wezzery, audience thought they knew about her. Bathed in the glow of Grease, Olivia Newton-John stood at the height of global fame. But instead of settling into comfort, she chose movement. Later in 1978, she released Totally Hot Mouth, clear signal that the gentle image audiences had embraced was no longer enough. The sound shifted, the energy sharpened. There was confidence, edge, and a quiet declaration of independence woven into every track. This was not rebellion, it was evolution. Audiences responded immediately. On stage, Olivia carried a new intensity, stronger, more commanding, unmistakably present. Japan and Europe, each performance building upon the sense that she was no longer confined by expectation. Yet Olivia refused to be defined by a single reinvention. In 1981, she surprised the world again with Physical. It was more than an album. It was a complete transformation. Short hair, athletic headbands, bold, unapologetic movement. The long-form music video, inspired by aerobics culture. The title track exploded beyond music charts. It became a cultural phenomenon. Physical dominated airwaves, sparked a global fitness craze, and placed Olivia at the center of a changing cultural conversation. But behind the commercial triumph was some far she could stretch without losing herself. For Olivia, reinvention was never about shock. It was about honesty. At the height of this renewed success, her private life entered a gentler chapter. In 1984, she married Matt Latanzi, her co-star from Sanadu. Together, they built a small, intimate family and welcomed their daughter, Chloe Rose. Motherhood reshaped her priority. Fame no longer demanded every ounce of her attention. She chose presence over pursuit, understanding that time with her child was irreplaceable. In a way, success never could be. But life rarely allows calm to last indefinitely. As the spotlight dimmed by choice, another storm quietly gathered noon that would challenge Olivia in ways no stage ever had. In 1992, just as Olivia Newton-John was preparing to fully embrace a life centered on family, the world she had carefully protected began to fracture. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. The news arrived without drama, without warning, only a quiet certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. The illness did not announce itself as a public battle. Olivia chose privacy. Treatment became her new routine, strength her daily requirement. As her body endured months of medical procedures, another loss followed. Her father passed away. Grief arrived late. At the same time, her marriage began to strain under the weight of illness, exhaustion, and unspoken fears. What had once been gentle stability slowly eroded. This period marked the darkest chapter of Olivia's life. There were moments when the joy that once defined her seemed unreachable, like a memory belonging to someone else. Fame offered no protection here. Music could not erase uncertainty, and optimism alone could not carry her through the nights. Yet Olivia did not collapse. She faced treatment with quiet discipline, enduring each day not through denial but through resolve. There were no public declarations of victory, no grand gestures, only the steady decision to continue in time. She survived the illness. Her recovery was not framed as a miracle, but as the result of persistence and care. 2 years later, she returned to music gradually, without spectacle, without pressure. Christmas projects and low-key tours throughout the 1990s reflected a woman no longer chasing momentum, but balance. Then, at the turn of the millennium, a singular moment arrived. At the opening ceremony of the Sydney 2000 Olympics, Olivia sang before the largest audience of her life. It was more than an honor. It was a quiet completion of a journey that had begun decades earlier, filled with ascent, retreat, and return. But life was not finished testing her resilience. Another loss waited beyond the applause. In 2005, Olivia Newton-John's life was shaken by a loss that offered no closure. Her partner at the time disappeared during a fishing trip and was never found. Search efforts continued, but answers never came. There was no explanation that could soften the uncertainty, no final moment that allowed grief to settle. What remained was an absence that refused to be defined. Alongside the shock came public speculation. Online rumors circulated without evidence, adding another layer of pain to an already unbearable situation. Olivia did not engage with them. Privately, however, the weight was immense. For a period, she struggled deeply, relying on adherence as she attempted to steady herself through months of emotional collapse. Even then, she never fully released the fragile hope that the man who vanished might somehow return. Years later, in a 2013 interview, Olivia quietly admitted that she still thought about him. Some chapters, she acknowledged, cannot be closed by force of will alone. Life moved forward. On June 21, 2008. Olivia remarried, finding companionship and understanding with John Easterling. The relationship did not erase the past, but it offered stability. Something gentle, grounded, and patient would define this stage of her life most. Rather than retreat inward, Olivia began turning her pain outward, into purpose. Alongside friends and well-known figures, she undertook a symbolic walk along the Great Wall of China, raising funds for the Cancer Wellness Center she had founded. It was not a publicity gesture. It was a declaration that suffering, when faced honestly, could become a force for healing rather than isolation. Olivia's compassion extended beyond performance. In 2010, she appeared on the television series Glee, performing physical for a new generation, many of whom were discovering her for the first time. She did not chase relevance. Beyond music and acting, she embraced a quieter mission, the advocating for holistic health and balance. She published Live Wise, sharing recipes and philosophies centered on mindful living, donating all proceeds to support cancer patients. For Olivia, health was never just about survival. It was about learning how to live gently with oneself. Yet even after all she had endured, life still had one more trial waiting. In 2013, Olivia Newton-John faced another devastating loss when her beloved sister passed away from brain cancer just 6 weeks after being diagnosed. The grief was swift and unforgiving. Not long after, a car accident revealed a truth Olivia had hoped belonged to the past. The breast cancer she believed she had overcome more than 2 decades earlier had metastasized to her shoulder. She chose silence, not out of denial but out of refusal. To refuse letting illness define her final years. While the world believed she was simply stepping back, Olivia continued touring, creating, and raising funds for the Cancer Wellness Center she had built with unwavering dedication. For years, she lived carefully but fully. It was not until 2018 that she publicly shared the return of her illness. Even then, her outlook remained steady. There were no dramatic statements, only acceptance and resolve. She continued to be honored for her contributions to music and culture, and she remained deeply committed to charitable work during the global pandemic. As her health grew increasingly fragile, Olivia stayed connected to her community and encouraging others with quiet optimism. Her belief in kindness never wavered. After decades of resilience, through fame, loss, illness, and renewal, Olivia Newton-John passed away in the early 2020s. Closing a life marked by light, but never untouched by shadow. In his farewell message, her husband John Easterling wrote that at her deepest core, Olivia was a healer. Through music, through compassion, and through the way she transformed pain into service for others. Her legacy does not rest solely in awards, chart positions, or iconic roles. It lives in something simpler and far more enduring. The belief that even in life's most fragile moments, kindness can still take root, and hope, nurtured, will always find a way to endure.